Happy New Year to everybody who joined. On behalf of the whole Flourish team, I wish you a wonderful new year filled with great data visualization. So to start this new year kind of lighthearted, we've decided to take a look at one of our Flourish content-based templates, the photo slider. We're hoping that you're going to enjoy the first tea break webinar of 2022. So without further ado, I'm just gonna basically go through everything that we're gonna cover in today's webinar, which is going to be the introduction to the photo slider template and what is it in general and when is it good to use it. We're also going to take a look at the modes of the photo slider because our photo slider templates comes with 3 modes, which are the slide, the fade, and the spotlight. We're going to create a photo slider visualization from scratch, so you can see how easy and quick it is to actually create a stunning chart, not a chart, but visualization with this template. And we're going to finish with some useful tips and tricks on how to make your photo slider even more stunning. So my name is Simona. I am today's host, and I am part of the support and content team here at Flourish. I have my colleague Mafe here with me, who is going to be more than happy to reply to any questions in the chat. So please feel free to use the chat here in Zoom to ask any questions during this webinar. So starting with the photo slider template. What is it exactly? So the photo slider is pretty self-explanatory, as the name suggests, is a great way to compare and contrast images. In most cases, you can compare 2 images, as you see here in the GIF, where basically showing how Smithfield Market in London used to look like back in the past and how it looks like nowadays. But in some cases, you can actually use only 1 image, and that might be quite useful and quite good looking as well. But we're going to get to that in a second. As mentioned before, the photo slider comes with 3 modes, which are the slider, the fading option, and the spotlight. And of course, all of these different modes have their own different and specific use cases. So you might be asking yourself, why should I use a photo slider? Well, here we have mentioned, in our opinion, the most important reasons why you should use this template. And the first and most important bit is that it's a great creative way of telling a story. So in these slides here, we have provided 2 examples that are using our photo slider. One of them is by Continentalist and the other one is by Sky News. And you can see here, if I click on this, and scroll down a little bit more, you will see that Sky News have used our template to create and to compare the traffic volume in 2019 and 2020 in 3 UK cities. So, for example, if I just click on this slider and I drag from left to right, you can see how the traffic volume is being compared in the 2 different years. And as you can see, this is a very interactive and very great, like very visual way to tell a story because in some cases, I mean, obviously we're visual creatures. We like to see the things in order to understand them better. And this is where the photo slider template comes very handy. In addition, this template encourages user engagement, which, as many of you may know, is quite important. And of course, engaging the user as much as possible in your data visualization makes a great impact on the user experience as well. Asks them like basically is making them ask for more data visualizations. So that's another great reason why you should use this template. And last but not least, of course, this template is very easy to make and very straightforward to understand as well in comparison to other charts. In general, you don't really need to fill your whole story into this template, but if you're creating a longer narrative, that might be quite of a nice transition between different charts and different Flourish templates as well. And as mentioned a few times by now, you will be able to see on this slide the different modes that the photo slider comes with, which are the slider. So basically, you can slide and compare two images from left to right. There is another mode, which is the fading mode, which basically increases and reduces the opacity of your images and kind of merges them together as you slide towards the middle. And of course, we have the spotlight mode, which basically highlights certain part of your visualization. And this spotlight mode in particular is extremely effective when you decide to create a story with the photo slider template, which we're going to be doing in a second. So that in a nutshell is the basics of our photo slider template and why you should use it. So without further ado, let's just get into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new visualization and I'm going to scroll down a little bit more here where it says this photo slider. As you can see, we have three different starting points, which are the fader, the slider, and the spotlight mode. But even if I choose the fader and then later on I decide against it, then I would like to switch to a slider, for example, you can do this straight from the editor. You don't have to start a new visualization from scratch, which is quite handy. So we're going to start with the fader first. And as you can see here, we've already have a blueprint embedded, which basically, oops, I'm just going to move my zoom bar, apologies. And as you can see here, if I slide from left to right, you can see that we have one original image and one edited. So another thing that you may notice in terms of the photo slider template is that the data tab here is locked. So I cannot click on anything here, which means that everything I need to do in order to create a great photo slider visualization is in those few settings here. And as you can see, actually, if you're familiar with other Flourish templates, the layout, header, footer, and accessibility settings are existent in all Flourish templates. They're our default settings. So actually, the new options that you can play with are just those two, which again makes it a very easy and very fast template to work with. So as you can see here, we have two different text boxes where we can upload our photos. As with every template that supports images in Flourish, you can either use these arrows here on the right to upload your an image from your local device, or you can just copy and paste the URL link from the internet as long as it's not behind a paywall, and that will work as well. But for this reason, for this example, I'm actually going to use my computer, and I'm just gonna upload the Smithfield Market image to show you how the visualization can work. I'm gonna do the same here. And now, as you can see, we have the two images next to each other. I've uploaded the first image under photo 1, which goes on the right, and the second one on photo 2, which goes on the left. And now if I slide from left to right, you can see that my visualization is basically more or less done, the ones that I have showed earlier in the slides. So that took me about 10 seconds. Of course, now if I decide that the slide mode is not great for this visualization, I can go to the before and after mode, and I can click on fade instead. And as you can see here, you will be able to see a better overview of the fading mode, which is basically on the left, it shows you 100% of opacity of the image on the left, and on the right, it shows 100% opacity of the second image. And somewhere here in between, it kind of merges them together so you can see and compare in a different way than the slide. And last but not least, we have the spotlight mode here. And if I choose the spotlight mode instead, you will see that here I have 3 additional settings that appear because they're only they're mode specific. So with the spotlight, as you can see here, whenever I drag my cursor, hover over the image, actually the second image appears behind my initial one, which is really cool and very fun to compare, for example, what has disappeared and appeared in this building and on this market, etc. And if I click on the anywhere on the image, just for you to see, we can actually adjust the size of the spotlight. So for example, if I adjust it to 50, you saw that now basically my spotlight size increased quite a bit. In addition, I can also change the spotlight blur to something like 10. And now you see that my spotlight is almost a full circle. Whereas if we increase it up to 100, it's becoming much more blurred towards the edges. And last but not least, we have the spotlight animation setting, which is animation setting that will work when you use the spotlight mode to create a story, which we'll do in a bit. But these numbers basically represents the seconds that it will take my visualization to change the position of the spotlight from here to here, for example. And the good thing about the story is that this transition will be animated. So I'm going to switch back to slide for now, just to continue with the other settings that are available in this template. One very fun and cool thing about the photo slider is that it has specific settings for mobile. So if you enable these toggles here for both of those images, basically what are they going to do is that they're going to try to load these images quickly on smaller screen sizes. So for example, that might be quite useful for if the images you're comparing are very big and heavy in size, and you can just reduce their size and upload them only for mobile, so they preserve their quality, good quality on desktop. And the easiest way to do this is literally you can enable these two toggles. You can upload your own images here, and in order for you to preview whether everything is working correctly and properly, you can use one of those control buttons here, which allows you to preview your visualization at a typical mobile width. And you see immediately once we switch to mobile, because we haven't changed our blueprint images, now our mobile visualization will be displayed like so. So it will compare A and B, whereas if I switch back to a tablet width or desktop, our Smithfield market comparison reappears. These two settings are optional, however, so if your images are small enough to load immediately, or you're not too worried about desktop, for example, if you just want to take a GIF, you don't really have to bother with those two. Continuing with the slider settings options, we basically have, whenever you choose the slide or the fading mode, you will see that you have the option to adjust the look of this kind of slider in the middle. Whereas if you choose spotlight, the slider settings are actually hidden because we don't have a slider in this mode. Switching back to slide, as you can see here, we can increase the size of my handle, so I can make it as big as I want. I can also change the color and do anything. And of course, I can upload an image. So in a very similar way as here before, I can just click on an arrow and I can upload an image that I have chosen, either from the internet or from my computer. And as you can see, I have like some very basic image of an arrow here. So what I can do is I can increase the size a little bit more, maybe 90. I can change the color. Oh, oops, sorry. I can change the slider line color here, which is I can make it red or blue or whatever I want. And of course, I can adjust the thickness to make it a bit more visible. And in general, these are all the settings that you need to be aware of to create your photo slider. As mentioned, the layout, header, footer, these are all relevant settings for all different templates. So basically, once you start using Flourish a little bit more often, they will become a second nature to you, such as title, subtitle, and sources, footer, and accessibility. Just gonna check the chat. If the mobile setting isn't toggled on, no. So if the mobile setting is turned off, as we have it at the moment, so these are all turned off. If I preview it on mobile, the reader or the viewer will see exactly the same thing as a desktop user, but just in a little bit smaller size, but it will be interactive again. So just going to move on to a few other things that I would like to share with you, which are some useful tips and tricks that might help you once you start creating photo sliders. So as you can see here, we have a few very useful things that you need to keep an eye on when you're creating the photo slider to make your visualization a bit more creative and interactive, such as the initial slider position, the spotlight story, and the same size images. So everybody has access to these slides after this webinar, so you can find them into our resources page, so you can read a bit more here and also get some help with further hyperlinks, etc. But in the last 10-12 minutes, I'm actually going to show you those three tips so you can have them recorded as well. The first one is the initial slider position of our visualization. So if I refresh this page, and let's say I would like my initial slide to be like this, or even towards the furthest left. Even if this will be my default position for the time being, if I publish this visualization and refresh the page, the slider will again be in the middle. And the reason for this is that our preview window and our single visualizations do not really remember every single setting in the same way as a story does, for example. So what can I do if I really want to change the initial position? After I'm done with my visualization, I can just go and create a story. And as you can see, our visualization is added into sort of a story with one slide for the time being, and I can change the slider to become further on the left. And now if I refresh the page, the default setting will be like this, in the same way as I left it. So that's one very cool thing about stories, and that's not relevant only to the photo slider template. You can do multiple different and very cool things for locking the view, the initial view of your visualizations in a story mode. Another very handy thing is, let's say that I just created this visualization, but I don't need any more slides. So I don't want to add a caption and I don't want to have these numbers here. What I can do is I can literally go to the navigation style and click none. And you will see now that my control panel has disappeared from the top. So now, if I give this a name and I publish my visualization, you will see that it basically looks exactly like a story, with the only difference being that the slider is not in the default position in the middle, but on the left. And even if I refresh the page, it will happen the same. It will stay in the same position. Another very cool thing that you can create with the photo slider is, as I mentioned, our spotlight story. So I'm actually going to demonstrate this quickly. I'm going to start a new visualization again, and I'm going to use the spotlight mode here. And by the way, in the beginning of this webinar, I have mentioned that sometimes you can use the photo slider with one image only. And you can see a very good example of this right here. So we just have one image, the same blueprint as in the other visualizations, but actually the second image that we have uploaded is just a black square, which basically kind of is the is creating this very cool spotlight effect in this visualization. And in fact, I'm actually going to do something quite similar. So I'm going to upload two identical images with the only difference being their opacity. So here, in this visualization, we have a few screenshots from Twitter with Flourish mentions. And as you can see, my image is quite dark and gray. However, on the second text box, I'm actually going to upload the original screenshot, which is exactly an image of exactly the same image, but with 100% opacity. And now with our spotlight before and after mode, you can see that we can highlight various different tweets at the same time. Of course, I can adjust my spotlight blur to maybe 75, and I'm actually going to make it a bit bigger, just like this. And just for the sake of this visualization, I'm going to make the spotlight animation up to 4 seconds. Now, as mentioned before, again, if I leave this as it is, the visualization wouldn't remember my settings. However, I will add again my story and my photo slider to a story. And as you can see, the difference is that before I hover to anywhere or click anywhere on my page, I can continue highlighting different things. However, let's say that I'm going to click on this tweet here. You will see now that even if I move my cursor, the clicking position kind of locks in the spotlight in this particular place. Now, what I can do is I can simply use this button here to duplicate my slide. And as you can see, for the time being, there is no difference between my slides because they're exact duplicates of each other. However, by going to the second slide, I would like to focus on this visualization, on this tweet instead. And I'm going to do exactly the same one more time, but with the one in the middle. So now what will happen? If we go back to our first slide, you will see that now our spotlight mode has started to animate. So that's its initial position. Then if we change the slides, it goes towards the right, and then it goes back to the middle. And of course, for this visualization to work, you will have to have navigations simply because the user will have to change between the slides. But in general, it's a very cool way to kind of build a narrative with a photo slider template only. And last but not least, the last hack, it's a trick, more of it that I would like to show you, is how to create a photo slider with images that are not the same size, because that can happen from time to time. For example, in this visualization that I've already have opened, you see that I have two different images. So one of them is a road shot from above during the winter, and the other one is during the summer. However, you will see that my image on the left is actually smaller than the one on the right. And this becomes a bit annoying because obviously this is not the effect that we're looking for. However, for the time being, there are no any size options for your images directly within the Flourish template. But I'm going to show you a very easy way of doing this. And of course, you can find your own personal workaround, whichever works best for you, as long as you have any photo editor handy. For this example, I'm actually going to use Canva. Which is really convenient because I can simply create a design and I can choose any of those available um, canvases here, apologies, or I can create my own custom size. However, I think that for my images and the way they look like, a presentation might work well. So what am I going to do here is I'm just going to upload my my two images from here. I'm gonna open this and drag it to the bottom so it fills the whole background. And then I'm going to add the page, and I'm going to do exactly the same with my second image. And now what you can see here is that basically the both images have fulfilled the same canvases, the same size canvases. So they're now the same aspect ratio. And that's basically all I need to do to make sure that my images are exactly the same size. So what I can do here is I can just download my two images as a PNG or a JPEG. Like so. From here. And now if I decide to upload my images again, like this, oops, I'm gonna just refresh for a second. Yep, you will see that now my images have become exactly the same size because in the end we've edited them to use to be exactly the same aspect ratio. So of course you can create multiple different things like so. You can use any aspect ratio and the photo slider will work as long as they're the same size. So that, in a nutshell, was our photo slider template. We really hope that that was useful to you. Here in this last page, you can find some resources available for this template, such as an overview of how the photo slider works and a few of those the tricks that we just shown you now. This recording the recording of this webinar will be available on YouTube shortly after we're finished here. And of course, in our help page, you will be able to find all these slides that I have just shown you, as well as some additional useful resources in regards to this template. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you again for joining in the beginning of the new year. And please don't forget that these tea break webinars are bi-weekly. So our next one is going to be on the 18th of January, 2022, where we'll be covering the last of our 3D map webinar series. And we're going to be focusing on a bit more advanced features like extruded regions and more. So you can open these slides and you can register in this using this link here. Of course, I'm gonna hang around a little bit more for some questions. And of course, if you don't have a question right now, but you think of something later, you can always email us at hello@flourish.studio.